Good morning, everyone. I'm Kelly Greene, Minister of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. I'm honored to be speaking with you today on the territory of the Stolo people, including the Samath and Matsqui First Nations. I'm joined by Lana Popham, Minister of Agriculture and Food, and Ross Siemens, Mayor of Abbotsford. First, I want to thank Mayor Siemens and his team for incredible leadership during an incredibly difficult time. It's been 72 hours of tireless work to keep people safe. I know for so many here working on response as well as in the community, it's been many sleepless nights. I also want to thank all of the emergency operations staff, first responders, emergency services responders, search and rescue teams, community members, everyone who has been part of the response, working to keep people safe, protect farms and critical infrastructure here in Abbotsford and across the region. This morning, there are approximately 450 properties on evacuation order and approximately 1,700, I'm also sleepless nights, 1,700 properties under evacuation alert, many of whom are in the city of Abbotsford. I know that this is a really difficult time. So many people's lives have been uprooted, leaving your home, your farm, your business, worrying about what you left behind. It's an incredible challenge. I want to thank everyone who is taking evacuation orders seriously, working to keep people safe, and creating the space for emergency professionals to do their important work. I want to reassure everyone that the province, local governments, and emergency teams are working with urgency and doing everything in their power to keep homes, farms, and businesses safe. I also want to thank people who have stepped up in informal ways that aren't often talked about, like folks helping their neighbors, friends opening their home to friends who have been evacuated, volunteers filling sandbags. These community-spirited actions are making an important and an impressive impact. If you have friends or family that have been evacuated from their home, I'd recommend checking in on them, even if it's just to let them know that you're thinking of them. Small acts of kindness right now have a big impact. We've learned through past emergencies that when times are tough, BC is at its best, and the events over the last few days have shown that this is no exception. We're working across government to provide a coordinated response to protect people, support communities, and protect livestock. We're continuing to deploy sandbags and equipment and work closely with communities to assess damage and impacts. And the Ministry of Transportation and Transit is working around the clock to keep highways safe. The Ministry of Agriculture and Food is working closely with producers to protect livestock. As difficult as the last few days have been, there is more rain in the forecast. Now is the time for people in flood areas. If you have not done so already, pack a grab-and-go bag. Make it ready. Have the essentials that you need if you are asked to evacuate suddenly. Include items like seasonal clothing, medications, and important documents like your insurance provider. The province has created a step-by-step guide on building an emergency plan at preparedbc.ca/emergency ready. Evacuation orders can be issued on short notice, and that's why it's so important to be prepared before an order comes. Information on evacuation orders and alerts can be shared on your local government's website, and they will also be found on emergencyinfobc.ca or on X at emergencyinfobc. Our website is updated 24/7, and please check these resources regularly as well as with your local government. I want people to know that every resource is deployed and every decision that we're making is based on keeping people and communities safe. We could have a challenging weekend ahead of us, but with collaboration and teamwork, we will get through this together. Please stay alert, stay informed, and be prepared. I'll now turn it over to Minister Popham for an update on how the province is supporting producers in the region.
Thank you, Minister Greene. I'm Lana Popham. I'm the Minister of Agriculture and Food for the province. I think that maybe I'll start the update with just reflecting on what's happened with the contacts that I've been making with farmers over the last 12 hours. We know that the water levels came up last night. Farmers were watching very closely around midnight, and there had been elevated water levels that have made it into barns. And so today is the day of assessing and unfortunately finding some difficult situations that farmers are facing. The rising waters over the past 24 hours have not been good news for some of our committed farmers in the valley, and the situation is remaining challenging for many of them, and it's evolving. I want to thank everybody at the Emergency Operations Center for their hard work. Although we're facing really difficult situations, the fact that they're working around the clock, they know what they're doing, is making a big difference. I'm continuing to be in direct contact with farmers, and I can tell you that we talk about what has changed since 2021, and the communications level has absolutely changed, which is making it a little bit easier. What hasn't changed is the perseverance and the resilience of the farmers here in the valley. They lead with generosity of spirit, and when I'm checking in on them, they will tell me quite quickly that they're doing okay, but they're going out to check on a neighbor that they're worried about. They're going out to give a hand to a barn that's in trouble. And it continues to impress me. And I can't tell you how proud I am of them, especially in moments like this. We currently have 68 registered farms under the evacuation order and 98 under evacuation alert. I got word early this morning that we've lost a couple poultry barns overnight. Additional birds are in the process of being moved. And anytime a farmer loses livestock, it's heartbreaking and it's traumatic, and my heart goes out to those families. We're going to continue to work closely with them to help them manage through this moment. We have a hog farm currently that is relocating some of its animals. It's all hands on deck around that farm. We've had farmers from different parts of the industry come and help relocate those hogs. Again, farmers helping farmers. We're remaining in close contact with BC Dairy, and we are aware of a small number of farmers who have relocated their heifers. We've seen some milkers relocated to higher ground, but generally I would say that BC Dairy industry is in pretty good shape at this time. There's continuing to be some challenges around milk pickup, but we are working with producers on that. And I have to say that the Abbotsford Police Department has been exceptionally excellent at helping navigate that particular problem. So I'd really like to thank them for that. Milk trucks are being prioritized so they can get through the road closures and pick up milk from farms. We have one farm, I believe, that the pickup is not going to be able to happen, and so we're making some decisions around what will happen there. The emotional toll, again, is really tough on our farmers. When I'm talking to them, what I think is the hardest to hear is the fear in their voices. And it's interesting, as we were waiting for those waters to come in, I could hear that fear, definitely. And then now that we're in the emergency, as far as animal movement, etc., they switch gears and they become super strong. And I know they're going to get through it, but there's definitely repercussions from incidents like this, and we will continue to support them, their mental health, with AgSafe programs. Our lab, yesterday I told you that we lost power at some point, and yesterday the parking lot and the basement began to be flooded. 12 inches around of water approximately has entered into the lab space. This is compared to 2021 when it was 5 feet of water. So it's much different, but it still has an impact on the lab. And in fact, we now have to probably close it for the remainder of December. We are diverting a lot of our samples and testing to other provinces. Alberta and Manitoba will be taking some of our testing for avian influenza. And that happened last time as well. It's a fairly smooth process and testing will still get done, but we are handing it over to the federal government at this time. So we will continue to assess over the day, and I'll be continuing to keep in touch with farmers. I had just to wrap up, I had a really interesting Facebook Messenger exchange with a farmer that was quite well known during the 2021 floods, as he got a rugby team in to help clean up his barn. Really devastating situation, and he was out looking at his neighbors, and his brother was out driving around to see if anybody needed help this morning. So regardless of the weight of the situation, there's an incredible, resilient group of people out in this valley. And as I said, I couldn't be more proud of them. Thank you. I'll hand it over to the mayor.
Thank you. I appreciate the ministers being here today. To say that we are disappointed and frustrated is an understatement. And once again, the safety and the well-being of our residents, our farms, our livestock, provincial food security, provincial economy, and even our national economy remain unprotected and at risk. And while I appreciate the ministers and the ministry's efforts in providing support responding to this flood event, I think we can all agree that on this point, that enough is enough. We need action, and we need action now. We don't need empty promises from the federal government that they have our back. In fact, the federal government has not even reached out to me during this event. So I'm profoundly disappointed. Within the first 6 months following the devastating flood of 2021, we developed a long-term flood mitigation plan to avoid this exact issue. We have done everything, including almost standing on our heads, to be noticed and to be heard, and again, to be disappointed by our federal government. To me, this is an issue that needs to be addressed. It's a foundational issue to our economy, to our food security, and to put my city residents at risk once again, needlessly, because of inaction, is frustrating. So I am pleading again, and I appreciate the province being here. I've been talking with the Premier, and I know that they are committed to making this a priority, and this has to be a priority that is accentuated and accelerated, and we need to be pressing a full court press for this issue to be addressed by the federal government. I need that long-term flood mitigation plan to be adopted sooner as opposed to later. And I also need to have our friends in Washington State wake up and realize that the devastation that we're feeling here is no different than the flood mitigation and irrigation that the Columbia River Treaty was about. This needs to be part of that international treaty with the U.S. because, again, what's happening down in Whatcom County, we cannot continue to take this water. And again, this is only 4 years. If we had to have closed those floodgates, I can't imagine what we would be facing again today. So I appreciate the ministers being here. I appreciate the commitment that they have to making this a priority. And I know that they will be with me when we go to Ottawa to do the full court press. But I need the federal government to really be engaged. This is a huge issue for not just Abbotsford, not just our region, not just our province, but everything that's coming down that freeway is now stalled once again. So again, thank you. And thank you for standing with us from the province. And I need that partnership to be strong, and I need the message to be clear. I will now turn it over to David Campbell.
Thanks, Mayor. Dave Campbell, I'm the head of the River Forecast Center. I'm just going to provide a brief update in terms of river situation and what we can expect in the coming days. So we did see yesterday the peak on the Nooksack River through the afternoon, and as that water started to recede, so did that connection and overspill of water from the Nooksack River into the Sumas drainage. So that started, the sort of tap turned off around about midnight. And we've seen now that the basin really through the Sumas is really just needing to drain the water that we have in it. So as we go through the day, that process is expected to continue or to start. And we'll start to see the declining flows and levels as we go through the day. It's a very slow process, so this is something that really is going to take days to happen, and we'll be progressing quite slowly as we go through the next couple of days and into the weekend. Looking ahead into the next phase of things, we are seeing the potential for a stormy week ahead, and really the first of most significant storms is on the Sunday-Monday period. As we go through these, we continue to see some uncertainty in terms of where those patterns are going to hit most significantly. So there's a bit of differences between what we have seen over the last week. This system has more of an entrainment from the subtropics around Hawaii. So it will be a warmer event and the potential for ongoing heavy rain. At the moment, this looks, again, confined into predominantly Washington State, but also is coming into British Columbia, up and down the coast. So really this coming week could be seeing rainfall all the way from the Alaska Panhandle down to California. So it's a very significant weather pattern, which we'll see multiple phases of rainfall. No, as we come into the weekend, we're looking at the forecasts in really anticipation of what we might see in terms of the current situation. Now, rivers themselves are more vulnerable as we come into this period because of what we've seen over the last week. At the moment, forecasts for the Nooksack River coming from the Northwest River Forecast Center are not showing a likelihood of another overtopping event. And so really at this point, we're seeing that the potential really is just for that rainfall coming into the Sumas pattern floodplain itself, and that kind of local inflow rather than additional flow coming from the Nooksack. That may change as we go through and we get a better understanding of the weather forecasts. Similarly, as we look at other river systems, we've had some time to drop the rivers as we went through yesterday, today, and into the next couple days before this next system comes in. Again, we remain more vulnerable with the ground saturation, and so could see different impacts as we come in through the next period. So as we come into the next week, I think vigilance continues to be important. The River Forecast Center will be monitoring conditions and providing updates, both to partners and the public, as we gain better understanding of how these systems might impact. But again, understanding that we're into a phase of heightened flood risk across the region helps us to plan as well as be vigilant over this period. So with that, I'll wrap up and I'll pass it back to Minister Greene. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I believe we're turning it over for questions.
Please press *1 to enter the queue. You'll have one question and one follow-up. We will start with the questions in person. For your media, please state your name and your outlet. You'll have one question and one follow-up.
Thank you, Ben Milger, CTV News. I appreciate that Ministers Greene and Minister Popham have said that communication has improved significantly over the last 4 years. Farmers that we have spoken to in the West Sumas area are frustrated because they expected and they want infrastructure improvements to prevent this from happening. Why, since 2021, have there not been significant infrastructure improvements to prevent this kind of flooding?
Thank you for the question. We have been working very closely in the region to improve flood protection. We have $76 million for the Barrowtown Pump Resiliency Project, which is underway. We also have a flood mitigation table that is making good progress on identifying the key priority items that we will be asking the federal government to fund. We do certainly fund flood mitigation works and planning across the province. It's very important that we make sure that communities are being kept safe, that people and businesses are being kept safe. We continue to do that work.
You mentioned that there were some disappointing discoveries by farmers. Can you talk to us about the actual numbers that you're aware of livestock that have been lost? And with more severe weather on the way, what is the risk that more will be lost?
Yes, unfortunately, the flooding has affected some poultry barns. I learned last time during the floods of 2021 that discussing the numbers of the mortalities is really stressful for farmers to hear. Those numbers will come out after the full assessment and after this event is over, but we like to keep it to the number of barns so that I know there's farmers listening today, and so they're not hearing that. It traumatizes them, and so we will definitely have those numbers later, but during the emergency, we like to keep that to a minimum.
Next outlet.
Hi, Monica Gould with City News. I'm not sure who would be the best person for this, but I'm wondering if we can get a sense of like potential injuries and rescues. I do understand some people have had to be rescued from their homes, from cars. Wondering if we could get details on what kind of rescues are you seeing, number of rescues that have happened, and subsequently, are there any injuries that you know of associated with this event?
I know that provincial priority is always keeping people safe. That's the same with every local government and First Nation, and every effort is made to make sure that people are kept out of way of harm, and if they are in harm's way, to get them out. I will pass that over to the mayor for particular details.
Thank you. I'm not aware at this point of any injuries that have been reported. That is I know that there has been some significant issues with people being rescued by boats in Sumas, Washington. So there may be some misunderstandings or miscommunication on that front. However, Eric Peterson, our fire chief, who is the head of our emergency operations center, that might be a good question for him offline to ask, but I'm not aware, and my staff that are with me right now are not aware of those reports at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to maybe address that one question.
That was about infrastructure. We have done everything that we can within our powers at the city. The challenge that we're facing right here on the west side of the prairie is primarily the Transboundary Flood Initiative issue. And unless they do something on the American side, there's not much we can do on our end, unless it's our flood mitigation plan, which we've been working on, and we were turned down for funding from the federal government. So we've had to regroup, and we've had to redo that approach. However, that long-term transboundary initiative, that's where we need the federal government to elevate this. This is just as important to us on this side of the border as the Columbia River is on their side of the border, because Columbia River Treaty was primarily done for flood mitigation and irrigation in Eastern Washington. Power was a byproduct. So this is just as important to our economy as that is to Washington State. So we need that. The federal government has to be at the table for that issue.
And I believe I have Kevin Dunbar on the line for additional information.
All right. Thank you very much, Minister and Mayor. And I just wanted to reiterate some of the messages that were given already. I think it's the main focus of the emergency at the moment is to keep people safe. And so we've talked about evacuation alerts and orders. One of the most important things people can do is have their grab and go bags ready. And when there is an evacuation order, listen to your local government. In terms of reports of rescue, there have been some successful search and rescue activities throughout this event. In Chilliwack, there was a helicopter rescue in the Chilliwack River by a search and rescue team. Each of those dispatches of search and rescue teams has been successful. We also know that communities, including the city of Abbotsford, city of Chilliwack, and others, are working around the clock to understand what impacts have happened and what damage is in place, and they will start to release that information as they have it. Thanks very much.
Yeah, this question is for a colleague, and I appreciate there was maybe a bit of overlap here, but what lessons specifically were learned and measures put in place from the 2021 event to prevent another flood, and why specifically did those seemingly appear to fail here?
We learned a lot of lessons since 2021. We learned quite a bit about how proactive communication and data sharing is so important, which is why we now have closer ties with Washington State, so that we are getting the same information from Washington State as their emergency personnel are, through to our personnel on this side who do flood modeling in order to predict what's coming and where we need to move equipment and personnel. Including in that data sharing, we also have new monitoring stations on both sides of the border, as well as new cameras on the Canadian side, again, adding to the information that we can use to have predictive modeling and move people out of the way. We have since then added the capability of adding an intrusive alert for a flood event. This capability was added in response to the 2021 flood event. And that's if there is an imminent risk of life, we are able to issue an alert to people's cell phones, radio, television. We also have stronger contingency planning, both on the provincial side as well as with the City of Abbotsford and other local governments, so that the planning is in place to react quickly and decisively when we are experiencing a flood event. And my hat really goes off to the City of Abbotsford and all of their staff who have responded so strongly to this event. It's made a big difference in people's lives, and I just want to thank them for that.
Our next question.
Hi there, Brenna Owen with the Canadian Press. This question will be for the mayor, actually. So just removing, and I'm going to ask you about Washington State, but removing that from the picture for a moment. I know you have the flood table, but specifically, like the minister mentioned, some key areas the table's making good progress on, but you need the money, you need the federal government to step up. So removing Washington, if you had the money that you needed, what physical infrastructure, what else do you want to see for your community?
Yeah, so 6 months after the last event, what we learned is that we do need a pump on Sumas River. So Barrowtown pumps what used to be the lake bottom. That is protected by a dike system. Right now, the western side is what receives the flooding from Nooksack, or from Whatcom County through the Nooksack overflow. So we know that we need a pump station on the Sumas River to get this water through quicker. And then there will be a couple of other pumps in it. I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but that is a primary. That also has, so flood mitigation, but it also has irrigation capabilities to even make that even more productive on the west side. But that is the primary issue that we need right now is that we need to move that water through quicker so that it has a place to go. When we have events like this and we have to close those floodgates, the water just backs up and has nowhere to go. Thankfully, this time for the lake bottom, we were able to keep those floodgates open, but that water still backs up and it still takes a while to drain out through there. That pump that we would have would move that through a lot quicker, and we would mitigate much of what's happening right now. That and the flow split, which I think will be your next question.
Well, I'm wondering just if you were to have a sit down with Washington authorities and have a candid conversation with them. I appreciate this is also a federal and a provincial issue, but for you, how do you want, in an ideal world, Washington to address this situation?
Well, the flow split at Everson, and then maybe, again, we took 100% of the flow. So the flow split, widening that funnel, addressing that issue is primary importance. I know enough to be dangerous on some of this. I might just get Tyler Bowie from our staff because he knows about some of this a little bit more detail. So I'm just going to let him articulate what that direct ask would be.
Thank you, Mayor. It's Tyler Bowie. I'm the Section Planning Chief for the City of Abbotsford and Deputy General Manager of Engineering and Regional Utilities. The Mayor is correct. Down south, what we'd be looking for is really at where the overflow of Nooksack River occurs, looking at that flow split and having a better understanding of how much water is coming to Canada in order to make our decisions easier.
We will go to.
I would also add that any solutions need to be comprehensive for the region. There's no one thing that will solve all the problems that we are facing here. And without a comprehensive solution, it ends up, it can be very problematic. Even depending on where you do a dike enhancement can improve one area at the same time impacting negatively another area. So we really have to look at the whole region and make sure that all of that we are mindful of unintended consequences and making sure that the solution that we're choosing reduces risk for everybody.
Next question.
Taya Fast here from Global BC. Don't know who this would be for. Goes to about infrastructure again. Highway 1 is cut off. This is now the second time during a flood event that it's been cut off. Has there been any thought to making the highway more climate resilient, whether that be hiring it in those key points that keep flooding over so that we prevent situations like this again?
Certainly the location of Highway 1 and its interaction with flood mitigation works is of note and has been discussed quite a bit at our flood tables where we're figuring out what is the most impactful and beneficial way to move forward together. There are different solutions depending on how we move forward and how we can get the federal government support. It's really important that they step up to the table on this. And for further information, I'll pass it to Janelle.
Thank you, Minister. So as part of, after the 2021 event, what we did is we took a look at our Fraser Valley Highway 1 program, and we actually added on a fourth phase, was to actually extend from the Sumas Prairie into Chilliwack. And as the Minister mentioned, part of that is working closely and providing funding towards that table that's looking at flood resiliency to help with hydraulic modeling. So the highway is definitely a key component of the system. But prior to implementing any measures, whether it's climate resiliency or adding more culverts to change the flow or raising it, it really needs to fit with the broader system and the decisions that are made around flood management, both south of the border and in the community. So it's certainly top of mind and one that we've made some investment in to make sure we have that phase 4 of the program.
This question is on the phone lines. Karina Zapata, CBC. Karina, go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my question during this really difficult time. I work with the CBC in Calgary, and I have an unrelated question about the roads in eastern BC, if there's someone who can answer that for me. Many Calgarians drive over to the BC Eastern Rockies on weekends like Golden, Radium, Revelstoke, that area. I'm seeing lots of snow in the forecast, and I'm hoping someone can walk me through maybe what the road conditions are expected to be like, how potentially dangerous that drive might be, and maybe any words of advice or caution for people planning to head over.
For anybody undertaking travel on BC's highways, I always recommend checking Drive BC before you head out. It's got important information on road conditions. You can also access, I believe it's over 400 cameras to see what current conditions are with live cameras. For more information, I'll pass it over to Janelle.
Minister, I think the only thing I would add is that corridor is in the throes of weather. You can expect winter weather driving conditions. There has been continued snowfall. We do look at avalanche control and proactive control on that corridor. So as the Minister mentioned, just taking a look at Drive BC and making sure you're aware when those closures are in place. High patrols are going through that corridor regularly to make sure that the most up-to-date information is posted on Drive BC. And just making sure in the event you are in a closure is making sure your vehicle is prepared in advance. So folks have sufficient gas on their way, have some food, some water in their car, blankets in the event of having to turn off the car and wait. So it's really making sure that if you're heading out on the road and on that corridor where we do expect winter conditions, that your vehicle is equipped and ready to do that.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, just one quick follow-up. Thank you. Is the government considering issuing an advisory for this area, maybe asking people to postpone travel at this point?
Janelle?
At this point, it's my understanding that there isn't any plan for travel advisories, but again, that's something that we continue to take a look at in real time. And if new information surfaces around the conditions and the conditions being outside of typical winter conditions, that's when we look to issue travel advisories, and those informations get distributed to media and also get posted on Drive BC.
Okay, we will now go back to in person. Please state your name and your outlet.
I'm Benit Brach with CBC here in Abbotsford. Just a question on what kind of support is available for people who are facing flooding right now. I've spoken to a number of people who are currently unhoused and, they're cold and they're needing help. So can you talk about the support that's being offered, please?
Emergency support services are available for anyone in an evacuation order area. Folks can access that support either at reception center or online if they're registered for their BC Services card. We have supports for people, including shelter, food and essentials. So folks that have really had to leave everything behind, your basic needs can be covered through emergency support services. Some people may have access to additional coverage through their insurance. I always recommend for people to check their insurance coverage if they have that available.
Do you have a follow-up?
I'm just wondering if you can speak about what the next steps are in terms of assessment of the area there and what people need to know about that.
We're currently experiencing flood. We're currently experiencing the flood. We will start assessing as conditions change. It's a very dynamic situation, and it's early to be able to say that we're assessing damages. Perhaps I'll turn it over to the city. Thank you.
I'm just going to actually turn it over to Tyler because he'll have a little bit more sort of the return home plan and when that kicks in. And I think your other question about the housing component, and I think there were, because of the encampments that are on Ministry of Transportation land, we do have outreach teams. Cedar Outreach are actively involved, and we do have outreach teams looking into those situations, offering those supports to the folks that are unhoused. So I'll turn it over to Tyler for the other question.
Thank you. So starting right from day one of the event, we already had turned our minds to return to home for these residents. So we have a whole team of people working on that, as well as getting engineers hired and mobilized to start to do assessments on roads, culverts, and bridges so that we can provide a safe return home to people. As the minister had mentioned, we are still waiting for the waters to recede. So this is a thing that will happen slowly over the next couple of days.
And we'll turn it over to Kevin Dunbar online.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Mayor and Tyler as well. I think the other piece to add is as Tyler was mentioning, across the Fraser Valley, communities are trying to assess and understand the damage and really waiting for some of that water to recede. We are also supporting drone flights and other flyovers to really help get that picture and paint that picture of what's happening today and that assessment. So as we move ahead, EMCR is going to work very, very closely with communities to make sure that they're able to get the resources they need to do those assessments as quickly and as accurately as possible. Thank you.
Okay, our next question is from Mary Griffin, Check News. Mary, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Thanks very much. NOAA issued a statement earlier this week that these wet conditions are expected to continue from the Alaska to California until December 19. Is that your understanding as well?
We certainly are expecting heavy rain events, which can interact with the situation that we are facing right now. The forecast in the days ahead is a little bit far out for us to say with certainty what's going to happen, but perhaps I'll turn over to one of my colleagues in Water, Land and Resource Stewardship.
Yeah, thanks, Minister. Just to continue with that sort of outreach or sort of longer range forecast, we've got really that pattern set up across the Pacific Ocean. So a low pressure system off the Gulf of Alaska and high pressure across the southwest part of the states. And that's really leading to a funnel in terms of the trajectory of flow of air across the Pacific Ocean into the Pacific coast. Yeah, as you mentioned, stretching really from California up to Alaska. And so over the next week, we are anticipating to see a number of waves of rainfall coming in really across the coast. And that's where the uncertainty comes, is really just event to event. We know that the setup is here, but we can see that it can shift north or south a little bit, and that makes a big difference in terms of the hazards that are posed to British Columbia and specific through the Fraser Valley. So we're going to be continuing to monitor that, but I think that vigilance around a stormy, wet period through the coming week is the best way that we can be prepared.
Do you have a follow-up?
I do, thanks. Kevin Dunbar, did you say, is this correct, that there was a successful rescues by Chilliwack, search and rescue on the Chilliwack River? And if so, is there any images of that or video?
Excellent question. No, we don't have any video of it. Our role here at EMCR is to make sure the search and rescue teams are dispatched safely when requested and required by local authorities. There have been a number of search and rescue teams deployed and requested throughout this, and it would be the city of Chilliwack would have the real specifics on this. And I don't really want to speak on behalf of the city of Chilliwack or the search and rescue team. But what I can say is that those search and rescue individuals or volunteers are working around the clock, whether it's for this flooding event or other situations, and are always available to support the people of BC. Are an incredible testament to that energy that comes from people in BC supporting people in BC. Thank you.
Next question is from Peter Mitham, Country Life. Peter, go ahead.
Thanks very much. And I came to mind while I was waiting to ask this question that nobody ever talks about how these rain events recharge the aquifers when we're in the midst of them, but I'm sure that will come out in due course. But just want to know, again, following up on my question yesterday, if the province or if the chief veterinary officer has any guidance for dealing with avian influenza, particularly where we've got some poultry barns inundated now. And yeah, and also if there's any just veterinary guidance or any guidance on how the province is making it easier to deal with carcasses in the current flood event.
Thank you, Peter. So just to maybe go off your question from yesterday, our provincial vet has reported that there's no increase in avian influenza that seems to be connected to this flood event. We will continue to do our scheduled testing and send our tests over to Lethbridge and Winnipeg, and some to Calgary. But as far as disposal of carcasses, it's a bit early. There will be a plan led by the Emergency Operations Center around how that works, but we are sort of in the middle of assessing right now.
Okay, and now we will go.
I actually can pass it over to Jeremy.
Thank you, Minister. The best advice around highly pathogenic avian influenza is that all the existing guidance applies. Farms should still be following the same biosecurity whenever possible. We are working very closely with the poultry industry and the CFIA on this issue and making sure that things continue to move forward with the management of HPAI. On the management of disposal of carcasses from mortalities, we're putting plans into place right now as we speak, and we're working closely with the poultry industry to identify the needs and what farms need to be supported in that way.
Peter, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just on behalf of our team, was curious to know what changes, if any, BC is planning to make to disaster financial assistance or other assistance programs to make it easier for people who are now needing to rebuild for the second time in 4 years.
The province makes disaster financial assistance available in these sudden and widespread events. We have made changes to disaster financial assistance so that the eligibility is broader and that the total amount, the maximum amount has been raised. In terms of farms' access to DFA, I'll turn that over to Kevin.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And we've been continually exploring ways to improve and work on our DFA process and make sure the folks that need the support are getting it. I think what, as Minister said, we're continuing to assess the overall impacts of this response. We've been in touch and have been communicating to communities around the information that the DMCR requires to make a DFA declaration. And we'll be continuing to proactively communicate with all local authorities, First Nations around that, and make sure that they're aware and are starting to collect the information as they start to assess the impacts to be able to prepare for that recovery and to be able to prepare for any conversations around DFA. Thank you.
We will go back to in person for one follow-up. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if we can get an update on Highway 3. I understand there are multiple washouts and slides. Is it significant damage to Highway 3? Can people between Hope and Manning Park expect that to be closed for a significant period of time?
Janelle?
Thank you, Minister. So Highway 3 did experience significant damage. Between Hope and Manning Park, we have 23 discrete sites that have been impacted in a varying way. If you go on the Ministry of Transportation and Transit's Facebook site, there are some images posted to be able to give you a sense of the degree of impact along the corridor. The biggest site along the corridor is where we saw significant undermining of almost both lanes, and we need to go in and do a full culvert replacement. So we don't have an estimated time of reopening, but I certainly can say we don't expect it to be open in the coming days, but certainly as we have more information on what that construction timeline looks like, we will be providing updates.
Recommend folks to visit Emergency Info BC for up-to-date information about evacuation orders and alerts and the actions that you can take in response to those orders and alerts. For folks who are looking to be more prepared, visit preparedbc.ca. It has excellent information about how to build a grab-and-go bag, build your emergency plan at home, and other preparedness information. Before you head out, definitely check Drive BC for current conditions. It's very important that we take our time today and drive for the conditions that you're experiencing. Take care out there. Stay safe.
And that concludes today's event. Thank you so much.